Dr. Wais Aria is joining me today. He's an Afghan doctor and human rights activist. Dr. Aria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, you are currently in the United States. You're in Alexandria, Virginia, but not too long ago, you and your family were actually in Afghanistan. Can you tell our audience what exactly happened, how you got out, and why you were there in the first place?
Thank you so much. I never expected that the regime will collapse that much soon, and US would draw their soldier in a short time. I went with my family to visit our relative and family. In the meantime, to do some humanitarian work for marginalized and displaced community. I was in Kabul. The situation get worse and worse day by day, but I don't have this thought that the regime will totally collapse. So when the Taliban captured the Kabul, it was big shock for me and for my family. And we start trying to come out from Kabul, and we went to airport. But there was 1,000 people. We do not success to go in and leave the country. So I attempt next day, same situation exists. And there was a lot of emotional and physical violence, which I experienced that I have bitten by Taliban in front of children, and my children scream for me, and we came back. And I contact the US Embassy, they do not respond very soon, the email. And finally, they have a recommendation to go to different gate, it will work for you. I went to that gate again, same scenario repeated to me. The Taliban don't allow us, again, they pushed back and they don't listen to you. Even I showed them my documents, so, but it not work. And after spending of 2 days in front of the airport, one of the Taliban soldier just he allowed us to go in, and immediately we start walking, and we catched another gate, which there was US Army. It was about 45 minutes walk from Ministry of Interior to that gate. And then we got a bus and to military terminal. From there to we waited for 9 or 10 hours over there without food, without water, without any shelter, just in front of the ramp. I can share with you some pictures. Even we don't have anything with us because of fear from Taliban side. So and then we went to Doha, and from Doha to Germany, and from Germany, and finally we catch Dallas.
That's just absolutely insane that you and your family went through that. So thankful that you guys are safe. I know that your oldest son, I believe, is a freshman in high school, if I read that correctly. Obviously, he and your other kids have never lived under the Taliban. What were they thinking as you guys were trying to get to the airport? How were they reacting to everything?
Unfortunately, still my children has PTSD sign and symptoms. It was shocked for them. They totally disappointed from that situation. So they do not talk. They were depressed on that time. It was very hard to look to their face. At the first 2 3 days, even they don't wanted to eat. They don't want to go out. So when I asked the very hard response to my question, really it was a big trauma for my children.
And the rest of your family, I'm assuming your extended family are still in Afghanistan. Have you been in contact with them at all? What's the situation on the ground like?
Yes, I am in touch with my colleagues and with my family in Afghanistan, which is still living in Kabul. The situation is very tense. People are very disappointed. There is no hope for people for their future. Just recently, the day before yesterday, Taliban announced their cabinet, but their cabinet is just a specific group, exclude group from their own political party. There is no minority, there is no woman, there is no young educated boys and girls. So there is no hope for my family too.
I can't even imagine what is happening in Afghanistan right now. It's hard to even watch the videos that are occasionally coming out. We saw protests happening on Tuesday, and obviously those were put down pretty quickly in terms of the resistance there to the Taliban. Moving forward, I want to talk a little bit about the future of Afghanistan under Taliban rule. What does that look like, especially for women and children?
Let me to make clear this point. Unfortunately, nowadays, it is very hard to have the clear picture of Afghanistan for international community because there is a lot of limitation for media. Only we can see a few short of videos or some messages because the journalists cannot report what is going on in the ground. They do not feel safe for their own safety. They should not report something which is be fully clear from ground. So come back to your question. People lost their hope. Taliban looks as they were 2 decades ago. So they act same like that, only just show them in the media and they talk, we will respect the woman right, the child right, the human right, but we do not uh, physically see any changes. It is only in the stage of word. It is not in action. So therefore, as a human rights activist, I don't have any hope for the future of our nation and Afghanistan. And unfortunately, already the conflict boosted in different parts of Afghanistan because they exclude the minority, the politician party, include women in their cabinet and in their regime. So in a short future, we will be witness of another conflict, moving from one conflict to another conflict. And who will be the victims of this conflict? Most of the time, civilian and innocent women and children would be the victims of this conflict.
Yes.
And the reason would be, of course, Taliban.
As someone who experienced firsthand the brutality of the Taliban, I mean, as we've been talking about, you and your family were able to escape. And for the people who are still stuck there, like you said, your colleagues and your family, do you have a message for the Biden administration as we now move forward? We are officially out. The United States is officially out of Afghanistan. Do you have a message for the Biden administration?
Uh, in my belief, leaving Afghanistan in that situation was not a wise decision for United States. To leave Afghanistan abandoned and without any commitment, without any strong like guarantee from Taliban, just they abandoned Afghanistan as it is. And so let me to make clear, if Taliban was a danger or a risk for United States 20 years ago, they are in the same position and same mentality. It should be in the future too. So there is no changes. But if it was not risk and danger for United States, then what was the reason of coming United States to the Afghanistan? So in my belief, United States has a country to practice in the world of democracy and defender of human rights. Should not abandon Afghanistan as it is, should be with beside Afghan nation and support Afghanistan because they deserve to have their human right and civil right as a other country, as a other nation. Only a few people by the name of group of religion, by the name of political party, cannot control all 35 million Afghan nation.
Aside from the United States, do you have a message for the international community?
Yes, unfortunately, international community, they show their commitment to be beside Afghan nation. But you know, at the moment, Afghanistan are in a disaster and a very tense situation. It is not only because of war and conflict. Even people has this belief, especially Taliban, that we have peace. But peace is not means that we don't have war. There is peace. People suffering from humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. There is disaster of education, livelihood, and many more problems in Afghanistan exist. But unfortunately, when the Taliban captured Afghanistan, beside United States, the other country also withdraw their soldier, withdraw their embassy staff, and stop their support. In my belief, and I'm requesting from international community on behalf of my country, uh, do not abandon Afghanistan, be beside of Afghan nation. We need at the moment international community support and advocate for the right of Afghan nation.
Dr. Arya, one last thing before we go. I know that you are the founder of Tabish, which is a social health education organization. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you and your colleagues are doing for traumatized Afghans, and how will your work now continue that you're back in the United States?
You know, as a humanitarian worker, as a humanitarian head person, uh, really myself and my colleagues enjoyed from that work when we help people, especially traumatized children and people become victims of conflict or other violence in Afghanistan. And we spent all our life to help people. But unfortunately, at the moment, for us, there is no opportunity to provide same services. Even the demand is very high because the women cannot go out to do their work. And no one support our program. And I'm concerned maybe next day even we could not openly do our work what we wanted. So the demand is very high, but there is no sources to support us. There is no opportunity for us to provide same services which we have done for more than 10 years in Afghanistan.
Wow, wow. Dr. Arya, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story with your family of escaping Afghanistan. And of course, if there's more news, I'm sure there will be of developments in Afghanistan. I'd love to have you back on to talk about that. Dr. Arya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.